right, so first let's play with some stamps on our Gelli plate. So once again, I'm going to put my base colors down. And by using those same base colors every single time, not only do you see how the different techniques change it up, you also don't have to clean your brayer quite as often, which means you can spend a lot more time playing rather than cleaning. All right. So the base color is down. I'm going to take that same chip sapphire that I used before, and well, first one I'm going to take a print of is this one. I'm not putting any ink on my stamp. So what I'm doing there is I'm ending up removing the color from the background. On this one here, I'm going to ink up this stamp, and I'm going to add some color to our background. Now, obviously, as you can see, I'm not using acrylic blocks with these stamps. You absolutely can use acrylic blocks. It's really not going to change anything for you other than being able to remove the stamp a little bit easier. Now, there is ink on those stamps that has come from the gel plate. So what that means is once I am done taking this print, I can also stamp those stamps onto some paper and get a print that way. So there we've got the one where we just took some color away. And there's the one where we add color. Now just remember, when you're stamping, it's going to be the opposite. So that script one is actually backwards, but because of Gelli printing and stuff like that, you really don't see it, you just see pattern. And this one here, if I were to use it on a card, I would want it to be on, personally, I would want it to be on the right side when I put it on the card. So for this, I would change the ombre so it's from dark at the top to light at the bottom. And let's take, well, before we do this, let's do this. Let's transfer that ink back onto the Gelli print or Gelli plate for this one. And then for this one, let's just print it onto some paper. I'm just going to put the paper on the plate just so it's within view here. And there we go. A little bit of transfer from that Gelli plate has come off, so we get a little bit of the turquoisey color, a little bit of the different colors there. And I could have taken that and put it on top of one of my other prints, say just with the ombre background or whatever, just to see how that looked. So there we go. Now we've got the transfer from the plate, or from the stamp onto the plate. Tuck those guys aside. All right, so I have a couple die cuts here ready to go. So these are just die cut out of cardstock. Now, because they're cardstock, the ink is not going to stay on the plate where the die cut is, so it's going to transfer that color to the cardstock, which means you could use this as a way to color your die cuts, as well as a way of getting a print on your background. Now, this is one that I did yesterday and I already printed on that side, so I'm going to do it on the other side just so you can see it. So first of all, we can get a print this way. So it's not as detailed as the actual die cut is. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing die cuts that are very detailed. It is going to change up a little bit, but that's okay. So like I said, the ink is going to transfer to your die cut. So there'll be ink on the back here, which you could use on the front of a card, but there's still that outline ink on the background here. So we could also use that. So another way of getting some really interesting looking prints, as well as creating embellishments for your card. And let's take this one up. Now, this isn't my favorite way of using die cuts with the Gelli plate, so that one isn't nearly as interesting to me as this one is, but still a very cool background. So let me show you next what is my favorite way of using dies with the gel plate. On my Big Shot here, I have some butterfly dies, and here I've got some fun foam that has a sticky back to it. So I'm going to die cut these butterflies, and they cut like butter. They cut just as easy as cardstock. this to the side. And they pop right out. Let's move those dies to the side. And then I've got a piece of chipboard. You could use cereal board, you could use whatever you want. You just want something to be a little bit stiffer. And this is a nice inexpensive way of having a stiff background. Corrugated cardboard would work as well. You just want to have something that is sturdy. So I'm going to set that to the side. These are ones that I've already created. So basically, you're using your dies to create stamps for your gel plate. Now before we move to the next step, the other thing that I want to show you is when the pieces are too big, it's easy to have a hand, or to just create a little handle for it. So you're going to take a piece of packing tape, and you're going to make a little flap there that sticks together and then tape it to the back here. So this just makes it really easy to lift off your plate when you're stamping with it. Now obviously you can use your individual dies and create a background, or you can use a background die. This one here, I created that background die and then just use the circles to create polka dots. So you can use whatever it is that you're wanting. I am going to use the leaf and the viney things. So we're going to do two things with it. First of all, I'm going to ink them. And I've got a light green here. And you can tell that I'm being super, super careful, about where I put my color. I just want to make sure the full thing is inked. I'm not really worried about being precise. Now I'm just going to put this one here. I've already got the ink on my background here, just to save you time watching me doing the same thing. So I did the same ombre background as we've been doing this whole time, and I'm just going to randomly put that darker green there. And then press it all down. Same as a jelly print, you want to make sure that everything is touching. I'm going to get a piece of paper here to the side. I just want you to be able to see me stamping it. So I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to stamp it onto some paper. Create a print that way. And then I can take this and create another print there. And I can even go back and do one more here, and it's going to be just a lot lighter. So let's do the same for this one here. Sure that I've got the full thing covered, but then you get the positive image, and then this is the negative image. And then let's do one more, and we'll get a lighter version here. There you go. So there's one more way you can use your dies. This one here I used, and I die cut some Yupo paper. So I'm just going to ink my background. I'll be back in a second and show you what we can do with that. All right, my background is inked and brayered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pink color for this one. Now, so this is where you need to worry, not worry, you need to be aware of how much detail your stamp or your dies have, because first of all, this one was a little bit more difficult to die cut out of the Yupo paper because there was so much detail in that die cut. So there are some parts of the center flower that I couldn't pop out, but it still looks really cool when it's done. So I'm taking this, I'm just going to turn it over and transfer it. So let's take this print here. So it still looks like a really, really cool background, and it's really interesting on the sample cards. So that is one of the cards, or one of the backgrounds that I created a card with. And then I've got that one there. And then I'm gonna lift this piece off here. And the nice thing with the Yupo paper, because it's synthetic paper, is I can just rinse that off and reuse that over and over again. So even though Yupo paper is a little bit more expensive, when you do something like with this, it's reusable. And that's another background right there. So I'll see you in the next video, and we're going to do some other ways to do backgrounds.